Yes, perfect. Okay, today's topic of discussion is on diversity, concepts of diversity in wireless communication environment. Now, before starting off with what is diversity and why we need all these things, let me start with a case study. What is going to happen in a realistic environment and how are we going to address that problem? Okay, let me brief you. What are we going to study in this chapter? First of all, we'll be studying the concept of diversity and combining in this chapter. Diversity and combining. We'll be studying diversity and combining techniques. Various diversity schemes we will be discussing today. And then the second part of the major part is the receiver diversity and its characteristics that comes with linear combining techniques. In that, you'll be studying selection combining, maximal ratio combining, different combining architectures. Different combining architectures you'll be studying. And third important aspect is you will be differentiating. You will be understanding the concepts of transmit diversity and receiver diversity in a realistic sense. Okay. Then last part is the mathematical part or analytical derivation of analytical approach for all these techniques. Okay, one by one we will be studying all these things. Analytical approach means if you don't have the ideas of probability and linear algebra, forget about this subject. Linear algebra basics, as we have studied in M3, M4, linear algebra is absolutely required. And probability random process, little bit of probability random process. Whenever you feel it is difficult like probability random process, I'll try to explain everything while solving the problems as well as while deriving it. Okay, probability random process, brush up your digital communication basics, and little bit of vector algebra and linear algebra are essential to learn this subject. Fine. Now, I generally follow some, your textbook is Andrea Goldsmith. Andrea Goldsmith, all of you know that, I think, yeah. Andrea Goldsmith, this is one all-time classic. And there are very many good references for that after Andrea Goldsmith. There is one more book called as Andreas Molisch for diversity, Andreas Molisch. This is also a very good reference. Okay, the concept is covered from this book. Everything will be followed from Andrea Goldsmith only. Okay, but the concept, how to explain the physical significance of the concept, maybe it's intuitive, but whatever, if you study Andrea Goldsmith, the topic of Andrea Goldsmith, that should be sufficient for your examination. Okay. And then there are very many good reference materials like IEEE transactions on wireless communication as well as on vehicular technology. One of which is, I think, D.G. Brennan. This is one classic. I think he talks about the maximal SNR realizable from several noisy channels. This is, I think this is a 1955 classic. If you read this paper, you will understand the whole diversity in wireless communication. D.G. Brennan on the maximal SNR realizable from several noisy channels. This is one classic. And there is one more book called as, I think Gordon L. Stuber. And this is also a very good book, Gordon L. Stuber. This is only for the interested reader. Okay, Andrea Goldsmith would be sufficient for just to clear the exam. Andrea Goldsmith would be sufficient. But if you want to understand the whole lot of what is diversity and all, you can look into all these things. There is one more wonderful reference. 1991 reference is Jean-Francois Lumix. That is experimental evaluation of space, frequency, polarization, diversity in the indoor channel. That is also one of the famous references. Jean-Francois Lumix. These four references are for the interested reader. That's all. Okay. Fine then. We shall start with the clash. Now, what is diversity? Now, before getting into what is diversity, what is happening in a realistic fading channel, we have to understand. What is happening in a realistic fading channel? Now, I have a transmitter, something like this, transmitter, and I have a receiver. This is what you have studied so far. Okay. Now, this is your channel. This is your channel. This is your channel, generally denoted as H. It's a matrix channel. Okay, fine. Now, what is happening here? If transmitter and receiver are placed nearby, let's say the distance of transmitter and receiver is, say, something like 10 meters. You could establish a strong line of sight communication path that exists between transmitter and receiver, isn't it so? Now, if the distance is very small, if the distance is something like 10 meters, and if they can see each other, let's say transmitter and receiver, if they can see each other, means visible, if they are visible, if they are in line of sight, okay. There exists a strong line of sight communication path exists between the source and the destination, or the transmitter and the receiver. This is well understood fact. You might have seen in chapter 2 and chapter 3 what is going to happen. Now, if the same thing, if the distance of communication, if it is increased from 10 meters to say something like 200 meters, from 10 meters to 200 meters, still you could experience this strong line of sight communication path, but power will deteriorate. Or in our technical wireless communication terms, signal to noise ratio will drastically come down. It will come down. We will talk about signal to noise ratio a little later. Now, in layman terms, power will be reduced. Now, if you increase this distance again from 200 meters to say, let's say 1.5 kilometers, still you could experience this line of sight communication path if they're looking at each other. Still there is a possibility, but the thing is power is drastically low. Now, are you following what is happening here? 10 meters, 200 meters and 1.5 kilometers. The channel, it is changing its attribute. The channel is changing its attribute. Though transmitter and receiver are capable of transmitting and receiving the information, because of some changes in the channel or in the medium, the receiver signal strength drops automatically. Okay, I think all of you are with me. Fine. Now, I have considered only these facts like 10 meters, 20 meters, 200 meters, 1.5 kilometers, so on and so forth. Now, if I have a communication path from, let's say, source, let's say the source is in Mangalore. The destination is in, let's say, in Manipal. Now, the distance is 60 kilometers. You don't have this component. But you have you cannot say a strong line of sight. You may experience higher signal strength at one particular point in time, but you have multi-paths. Let me try to explain it in a different way. What is happening here? Now, this transmitter is located 60 kilometers away from the receiver. Now, your FM station, let's say your FM station is broadcasting something. It is broadcasting something, you're able to receive it. But at some particular instance of time, if you go inside the building, the receiver has some sort of conundrum, means some sort of confusion in reconsidering the signal or receiving the signal. The signal is available, the signal is still available, but sometimes if the mobile station or the mobile device or your FM receiver device, if it moves out of some area, where the dominant path is not available, if it moves out of that area, what happens is you have a disturbed signal strength. Disturbed signal strength. This is very logical and everyone knows about this. Now, generally what happens is wireless communication channels are characterized by two things. One is the delay. The first part is the delay. Delay in reaching the receiver, the information reaching the receiver at different intervals of time, that is delay. The second part is your signal attenuation. Signal attenuation. Okay. Now you can talk about something like delay and signal attenuation, so on and so forth, but there are two different aspects to it. One is power, the complexity of designing the circuit, that is with respect to power, and usage, that is bandwidth. Now these are two important aspects of any wireless communication, power and bandwidth. You don't have infinite power, neither you don't have infinite bandwidth. Now with these two coming into picture, you need to design your system in such a way that whatever the distance you want to increase, you should be in a position to increase. Whatever noise you're experiencing at the receiver, you should be in a position to minimize the noise. Okay, you cannot eradicate the noise, you can reduce the noise level. Okay, you can reduce the noise level. Similarly, you have studied digital communication. In digital communication, you will reduce interference, you will completely eradicate interference, but you cannot eradicate noise. I hope this is clear. Now, after doing this, what is the major thing that we are going to discuss? Now, you have transmitted something, you have transmitted something here, you have received something here. There is some problem with respect to delay and with respect to signal attenuation. This is normally what is going to happen. Now, in mobile communication terms, if I want to explain the same thing, this is my mobile tower. Let's assume this is a mobile tower. This is your base station. Let's say you have some kind of reflectors here and some kind of disturbing things here, and you have a lot of reflections from buildings, and I have a mobile device over here. This is M1, this is base station 1. Now, adding power fade margin at the transmitter can always reduce the effect of fading, and it always improve the system performance. This is what we have studied in wireless communication. What do you mean by that? Power fade margin. You can set a threshold somewhere, something like that, and that is the minimum power that has to be transmitted, from this device so that it will not interfere with the neighboring base stations. And you can have a power fade margin at the transmitter, and it reduces the effect of fading and improve the system performance. Now, this sounds logical in telecommunication terms, but the thing with this is to overcome fading, multipath, the required power margin, whatever you want to have power here, power margin, whatever you want to set it over here is quite large. It's relatively large. So you cannot dedicate that. You cannot say this base station should have this much power, but you can restrict the power. The maximum power, minimum power can be defined, but unnecessarily you cannot vary the power, though the base station is not in the interfering band or in the neighboring interferent distance. Now, the problem with the power fade margin leads us to one typical thing, that is to understand the behavior of this channel. Now, what did I tell you? I told you one thing: base station cannot possess some intermittent power. If the base station has something like, let's say, for example, 10 watts of power, because the neighboring base station is not at an interfering distance, that doesn't mean that the first base station can improve the power. No, it is not possible. Now adding the power fade margin, it's not so easy. That requires a lot of complex circuits at the base station. We are not worried about the complexity at the base station. We are worried only the complexity at the mobile end itself. My mobile handheld device should be as small as possible. It should not be bulky. And at the same time, my mobile device should possess the maximum requirement of the received signal strength. That's all. Isn't it, sir? Now, the first thing, try to understand this point. To overcome fading, multipath or the required power margin is always relatively large. So we have to understand the behavior of the wireless communication channel, means understanding the advantages of wireless communication channel. Because what is wireless communication? It is stochastic. Stochastic both in time. Stochastic means it is absolutely random in time, random in frequency. Adding one more term here called the space-time coding or space dimension will give you 3 degrees of freedom. 3 degrees of freedom. Okay. Space-time code, space-time frequency code, and this 3 degrees with respect to space-time coding and space-time frequency coding will give you 3 degrees of freedom. It doesn't make any sense because we have not understood what is diversity as of now. Stochastic, word stochastic you have understood. Random in time, random in frequency. Okay. Now, to reduce the effect of signal fading, we have 3 degrees of freedom. That is what we have understood. Now, in order to understand this wireless communication channel, what you have to tweak here is this channel has some multipath component. Suppose if this mobile is somewhere here, let me tell you one thing, the base station, it has radiated something, like signals have been radiated. Some are reflected, some are diffracted. Okay, some have induced inside the wall and it will not come out, but some signals will still reach the mobile device. That makes some sense, correct? Now, you have to design a technique which utilizes, the stochastic properties of the channel. You have to design a technique which utilizes the stochastic properties of the channel in order to reduce the signal fading. It's called diversity. Let me repeat this again. I don't want to write all those things here. What I meant here is some signal will be reached at the receiver, but that may not be the strongest possible signal. Now, what you're tweaking out here is a technique you are going to design based on the random properties of the channel in order to reduce the fading effects at the receiver. In order to reduce the signal fading, this is called diversity. That's all. Very simple definition. A technique which you designed or which utilizes the multipath propagation, reflection, diffraction, and refraction, everything. A technique which you are going to design that technique. A technique which utilizes the stochastic properties of the channel in order to improve or in order to, in order to reduce the signal fading is called diversity. What do you understand by this? Definition can be obtained in some textbooks, may not be the same definition, but the similar definition, which will give you the same meaning. Okay. What I mean by that definition is the diversity in the sense is a communication systems can actually benefit from the random variation of the wireless channel. That's all. Communication systems can be designed in such a way that if you have strong multipath, that can be utilized to your advantage in order to reduce the effect of fading at the receiver. I think all of you are with me. If you have any queries, just ask. Okay. Now, we have seen 3 degrees of freedom. It is stochastic in time domain. It is random in frequency. And if you are adding that space domain as well, 3 degrees of freedom we get. In wireless communication system, what happens is the spatial dimension can be used not only as the diversity advantage, but it can also be used as an access scheme. It can be used as an access scheme, like space division multiplexing system. Okay, space division SDMA technique, space division multiple access system, means this has a prominent role in our diversity. Still, it is not clear what is diversity. We have said something like you are transmitting from, say, some far off distance, say something like 60 kilometers, and you are receiving something, and you are tweaking something in between in the channel so that you are getting some reliable signal at the receiver. That is what we have discussed so far. Are you all with me? Now, the advantage is randomness of wireless channel is to increase the number of users without increasing the bandwidth. That is the advantage. The diversity has this advantage. You can tweak in such a way that randomness of this wireless channel it's an advantage. It's a blessing in disguise to increase the number of users without increasing the bandwidth. Okay. Now, let me have a simple case study here. To understand this, you need little bit of linear algebra, but starting day itself, you should brush up your linear algebra. Now, this is my transmitter. This is my receiver. Now, let's say distance is, say, something like 100 kilometers. 100 kilometers. Now, the first question comes to our mind is it possible for my transmitter to reach the receiver with the available power? With the available power or at the transmitter, is it possible for my transmitter to send the signals so that it will reach the 100 kilometer distance? Let's say assume power is, I have a lot of power, that is called transmit power. Okay, I have abundant transmit power. Let's assume I have abundant transmit power. Now I have tweaked something, I have used something so that it will reach the receiver at the 100th kilometer. Let's assume that also. Now there comes the question. What if this channel goes for a deep fade? What happens if this channel goes for a deep fade? I want an answer from any one of you. What happens? Please don't sleep. Anyone can answer. If the channel, even after tweaking something, if the channel goes for a deep fade scenario, what happens to the state of the channel? Please tell me, anyone, what happens? What happens to the receiver?
Now so receiver will not have any information.
Okay, fair enough.
It won't be able to receive.
It won't be able to receive. Fine, I'll take that answer. Now the idea of diversity is what? Is to send the data and to receive the data reliably. Reliable data has to be received. Now what happens if there is a deep fade? Obviously, because you have one transmit antenna, one receive antenna and one channel. Let's say one channel means the same area, the same route you have. And if this goes for a deep fade, you won't be able to receive any signal. As somebody said, yes, receiver has, you cannot say 0, but it is approximately nil. You don't receive anything. The realistic fact that suppose if you have another path which reaches the receiver, let's say the line of sight path, strong dominant line of sight path has been deep faded. Now I have building somewhere here. It will also reach somewhere here. Let me change the color here. Okay, it will reach, it will reflect, it will refract, it will reach the receiver. What happens to the receiver now? Now let's say 1 watt power. In terms of power we will talk, then we will go to SNR. Okay, 1 watt of power that has been radiated because of the distance. Approximately here you will get, say, something like 0.00001 watt or something even lesser than that. Okay, now here, if because of the multipath, because of you have tweaked something, because of the multipath, let's say dominant line of sight path has been deep faded. Now you have a reflected path reaches the receiver. Try to understand, we are talking about only one transmit antenna, one receive antenna. Now here, what is happening here? Because of some reflections, it may reach the receiver at slightly different delay. Say, let's assume it takes 10 seconds to reach the receiver. It takes 10 seconds, means the transmitted information takes 10 seconds. Generally, it is very less. For example, now because of the multipath reflection and all, it may even take 12 seconds here. 12 seconds. But 1 watt of power, what you have radiated, may be corrupted because of the reflection, because of the absorption, because of the radiation, because of refraction, everything. You may even reach 0.001 or 0.9 or something like that. But you will have something, but that may not be a signal, maybe a delayed signal, shifted signal, something you will receive. That is because of the multipath characteristics of the channel. It will reflect, it will reach the receiver at different intervals of time. This is absolutely clear. Now, the idea of diversity is to send the same data over independent fading channels. Are you all with me? Just observe one more time. The idea of diversity is what? Idea of diversity is to send the same data over independent fading paths. For that, you need some different configurations at the transmitter and some different configurations at the receiver. Don't be under an impression that a lot of ideas have been put. No, nothing has been discussed. Only discussed is the realistic sense. That's all. Okay. The idea of diversity or combining diversity is the realistic fact that independent signal paths have different fading attributes. What is that? Now, let's assume I have one transmitter and I have, let's say, one receiver here, another receiver here. Receiver 1 and receiver 2. And LOS path, non-LOS path. Okay. Now let's assume this as a deep fade. They're transmitting the same piece of information over the air. This will be blocked here. This will be blocked. And because of non-line of sight communication, some reflected signal, some signal will reach the receiver 2 with some higher SNR or some with high power. And this will also reach receiver 1. Does it make any sense? Obviously. It will reach because it is a reflected wave. It might reach very less value at the receiver. You may have a very less power value here. You may have a little bit more power here. Now you can do one more thing here. You can combine these two. You can obtain the output. We'll go to linear combining in the next class. First, let's stick on with the basics here. What is happening here? The idea is independent signal paths have a low probability of experiencing deep fade scenarios simultaneously. Are you with me, all of you? This is very important. You have to understand this concept. Diversity is like I have used one transmit antenna and two receive antennas here. Sorry, this is the first receive antenna and that is the second receive antenna. Okay, this is the first receive antenna, this is the second receive antenna. What is diversity combining? Diversity combining is nothing but independent signal paths have a low probability of experiencing deep fades simultaneously. Isn't it so? Does it make any sense? Means even if you have deep fade here, this NLOS path may not get the deep fade or may not experience the deep fade at the same time. Now let me add something to this here. Now let's say we will divide this into different time slots. Let me write another figure. Let me not jumble here. Okay. Like this is T1, T2, T3, T4, T5. Okay, this is my transmit antenna 1, this is my receive antenna 1, and this is my receive antenna 2. Now you have transmitted something like this, it has reached this receiver, and you have transmitted something, it has reached the receiver. Now, if you have something like deep fade analysis somewhere here, okay, in the LOS channel, it is impossible, it is very much random to say that this signal will also undergo deep fade at this time interval only. It may happen, it may not happen. 99% of the times you cannot prove this because you know what is AWGN. The noise, you cannot say something like at T3 this will have a deep fade and this will also have a deep fade. T4 this will have a deep fade. This will also have a deep fade. No, it's not like that. What does it mean? It means because it's a different channel. This is a different channel. Means what? H1, I'll call this as H1, I'll call this as H2. Simultaneously, the probability of experiencing deep fade scenarios simultaneously is very rare. It might happen. Yes, I do agree with you. Yes, it might happen. Not all the time. Not all the time. If this was for a deep fade situation, obviously channel 2 will not experience the same fade. Now, there is another question that generally arises in your mind. What if H1 and H2 are same? What happens if H1 and H2 are same? Remember this question. I'll come back to this question. Remember this question. I'll come back and answer. Any more questions till now? Till this point, any questions you have? Okay, let's assume you have followed at least 50% of what I have explained so far. Now, this is my transmitting antenna. This is my receiving antenna 1, receiving antenna 2. Now, what have we understood? H1 and H2 are different. H1 and H2 are different. This is what we have understood. And in general, this is also true. I'll tell you why. H1 experiences deep fade at different intervals. H2 experiences deep fade at different intervals. Remember this question. I'll come back and answer. Now, what are the ideas behind selecting the antennas in order? That means the receiving antennas. What are the ideas behind selecting the receiving and receiver antennas in such a way that the signal reliability at the receiver can be improved? Let's go back to the first slide. In the first slide, in this slide, what was the concern? Just we have to transmit. Just transmission, that's all. And you don't have infinite power, you don't have infinite bandwidth. So those two are the criterion. Now, based on those two criteria, we have to design our signal in such a way that it should be available at the destination. Now, what happened here? You have something like a base station and a mobile station. You have 3 degrees of freedom, space, time, and frequency. Base station will transmit some signal and mobile station will receive. For example, your mobile device is constantly searching for the signal strength. Okay, that is your thing. Now, if you can utilize space with respect to time and frequency, you will have 3 degrees of freedom. So the space can be utilized as the 3rd degree of freedom, and it can also be used as an access scheme, not only as a diversity scheme, it can also be used as an access scheme. That is what we have discussed. Now here, what happened? You have a deep fade analysis. In the first figure, you have a deep fade analysis. Whenever you have a deep fade analysis, if you have only one transmit antenna, one receive antenna, and you have only one H, if you don't have multi-path scenario, you will have 0 received signal. Signal is attenuated. Okay. Now, if you have multiple transmitted, reflected, or refracted, or diffracted signal, you will still get the received signal with delay. Now, LOS, NLOS, delay. And the next slide, what it indicates is we have assumed something. Like one transmit antenna, you have transmitted something, you have received something. One has a dominant LOS. Let's say dominant LOS has it has something like a deep fade scenario here. What I am arguing here is H1 and H2 are different. H1 and H2 are different. Obviously, if you stand in one room, let's say in your house, if you stand in one room, you will have strongest signal. If you stand in the neighboring room, you will have different signal strength. Isn't it so? Now, that means what? You have different patterns. You have different signatures. Means you have different parameters of channel signal strength. That's all. That's all what we have discussed so far. Now, there are two arguments here. Case 1 is H1 and H2 are same. No, H1 and H2 are different. We will discuss these two cases. Now, what are the ideas behind selecting the antenna with the strongest signal so that you will have abundant, not abundant, at least received signal strength availability, proper received signal strength availability at the receiver? Okay, fine. Now, what am I trying to prove here? The distance of separation from 60 kilometers to 100 kilometers, if I increase, okay, with the same power from the transmit antenna, I should be in a position to receive. The logical concept behind this is simply without doing anything, you cannot simply increase, because if the transmitted antenna is designed to feed something like this to 60 kilometers, you cannot improve the distance to 100 kilometers. You have to tweak something here. First tweaking is regenerative repeaters. That in wireless communication terms, it is called as a relay. You can use a relay. So amplify the signal, transmit the signal. The second point is you should have a node that has to decode and then you have to forward. These two are relay technologies, amplify forward and decode forward. This will improve the reliability of communication. Okay, fine. Decoding has been done, forwarding has been done, so it will extend the range. It is as good as a regenerative repeater, but you cannot call it as a regenerative repeater because this is a wireless channel. You should call it as a relay, that is amplify forward and decode forward. Just concentrate now. Now I have to choose in such a way that I have to improve the reliability at the destination. What is happening here? Now, there are three ideas that I need to consider here. First idea. What is the distance of separation at the transmitting end? What is the distance of separation at the receiving end? What is this distance of separation means? If you have more than one transmitting antenna, how do you separate it out? If you have more than one receive antenna, how do you separate it out? Very, very important. What is the behavior of noise in the channel? Behavior of noise in the channel. Now, look at this. Take a look at this. Now, my first ambition as a case study is case 1. I have a signal power that can be transmitted up to a distance of 60 kilometers. I have used a relay. I have transmitted up to 100 kilometers. I say this will work, a relay. Now, if I have a strong line of sight communication path and if I have fading effect over here, what is happening? Because of the extreme fading, I will not receive anything. Even if you use a relay, you will lose the signal. Okay. Now, what is this transmit antenna 1 and transmit antenna 2 have to do here? This technique of improving the signal strength either at the receiver or at the transmitter is called diversity scheme. Diversity scheme means utilizing more than one. That is what diversity means, no? Diversity languages. Somebody can speak Kannada, somebody can speak Telugu, something like that. Diversity scheme. That's all. Now even if I have power, something like limited power, I can divide the power equally across the number of antennas and transmit the same signal across the channels. Are you all with me? I'll repeat it once again. If I have 10 watts of power, if I have 4 transmit antennas, if I have 10 watts of power, okay, if I want to transmit that through 4 transmit antennas, I have to divide this by 4. So that transmit antenna 1, transmit antenna 2, transmit antenna 3, transmit antenna 4 will be equally transmitting the same power with same information radiated from all these 4 antennas. all these 4 antennas will radiate the same signal. Correct? Are you all with me? Now the same signal, if I want to transmit, let me take a realistic example. Are you all with me now? Transmit antenna 1, 2, 3, 4. Equal power sharing has to happen. You cannot have something like indefinite, say 6 watt power, 3 watt power, 1, 0.5, 0.5. No, equal power has to be distributed in order to transmit same piece of information from all the antennas. Oh, what happened? 1 second. One second, just the app got crashed. I'll get back to you. 1 second, just wait for 1 second. Okay. Yes. Sharing. Is it visible now?
Yes.
Perfect. Now what is happening here? Now I am transmitting something. Okay, there are 3 different. Oh, sorry. There are 3 different attributes to the system. Now I'm transmitting something. I'll receive something over here. And what does this distance at transmitter and distance at receiver mean? It means the distance at transmitter and distance at receiver means what is the inter-antenna distance, minimum distance that is required for the transmit antenna to operate without having or without mimicking the behavior of the channel. Without mimicking the behavior of the channel. Let me tell you one thing. Now here I have something like transmit antenna 1, transmit antenna 2, transmit antenna 3. These inter-antenna distance has to be taken care in such a way that, I think you have studied this. This has to be taken care in such a way that this should have some H, this transmitter should have another H, and this should have another H. H3, H2, and H1. Now, what does it mean? It means you are not mimicking the channel. Transmitter 1 is not mimicking channel. The transmitter 1 and transmitter 2 are different. How do you make that happen? According to the standard, you can calculate something like this. This is a case study. Let's say case 1. Now, let me give you a frequency that is, let's say, a standard operating frequency of our 4G. Let's say 2 gigahertz, 2.1 gigahertz. Let's take it as 2 gigahertz. Now, what is my lambda? Lambda is C by F. What happens to my lambda? 3 into 10 to the power of 8 divided by 2 giga. 2 giga is 2 into 10 to the power of 9. Okay, that becomes 0.15 meters. Okay, fine. Now minimum distance is lambda by 2. In order to avoid some mimicking here, what is that mimicking? There is a proper word for that. Lambda by 2 is somewhere around approximately 7.5 centimeters. Now at the transmitter at base station, let's say at base station, you will have minimum 7.5 centimeters. So yes, definitely you will have 7.5 centimeters. Otherwise, if you don't keep this 7.5 centimeters minimum lambda by 2 separation, actually, correctly speaking, that has to be 0.38 lambda, but we don't consider this 0.38 lambda and all. Okay, we will consider only lambda by 2 distance. So lambda by 2 distance is 7.5 centimeters. So what does it mean? The distance of separation from transmit antenna 1 to transmit antenna 2 has to be minimum 7.5 centimeters apart in order to have this H1 and H2 different. Now, let me go back to this slide. Here, H1 and H2 are different. Okay, what is the minimum distance that you need to follow in order to have H1 and H2 different? What does it mean? It means the channel H1 from transmit antenna 1 will not be same. It will be unique. How do you write that? Now I will write H as a complex number. Let's say A plus IB. Okay, let's take it as a QPSK constellation itself. Let me take it as a QPSK constellation. Let's say a simple QPSK constellation I will take, that is +1, -1, plus J and minus J. Now, if you transmit this +1 here, and if you transmit +1, let's say +1 you have transmitted. If H1 and H2 are different, H1 will have some complex coefficients, complex gain. You will have somewhere around 0.68 into the transmitted antenna 1 value, and here let's say 0.7 or 0.5 into +1 that you have transmitted. Let's assume for a single receive antenna. This is for a single receive antenna. If you have two receive antennas here or more than two receive antennas here, subsequently you have to write that matrix. Now I have considered 1 cross 2 or 2 cross 1, whatever it is. Generally NR cross NT. This is written NR cross NT. NR cross NT means NR receive antennas, NR transmit antennas. Now I should write this as 1 cross 2. Now 0.68 plus constellation point J0, and the other one is 0.5 plus J0, I0, whatever it is. This is my H for two transmit. Now, these are different. These are absolutely different. Why? Why this is different? Because you have avoided that ambiguity by placing these two antennas from a minimum distance of λ/2. Are you all with me? Let's hope so. If you have any queries, just stop me and ask me. Okay. Now, there comes a different aspect to this. Now, in your mobile device, let me go back to the next slide. I have base station here. I'll not worry about my base station here. Let me call this as a base station. Assume this is a base station. I have a mobile station. Okay. Now, my mobile say 5.5 inch standard. Now it is approximately up to 6 inches mobile. Okay. Correct? Even maybe lesser than that. Okay. Now, if this mobile is operating at f is equal to 2 gigahertz or 2.1 gigahertz, how do you make sure that transmit antenna or receive antenna separation is λ/2? How do you make sure that? Okay, fine. Diagonally you can place. Okay, fine. Accepted. Let's say one antenna you have placed here. Another antenna. Let's assume this has 7 centimeters, 7.5 centimeters. You have kept antenna here. Now, what does it mean? It means you are avoiding something here. This concept of avoiding the channel mimicking the next nearest channel is called correlation. Channel correlation. Now, this is called antenna correlation. This is transmit antenna correlation. The same applies to your receiver antennas. If the receiver antennas are not separated by λ/2 distance, you will have correlation at the receiver, and hence it becomes impossible for your combiner or your detector to detect the exact signal. Now, let me go back to the previous point. This point, when does this happen? C1, H1, H2 are same. When you don't keep the values of H1, when you don't keep the values of λ/2 distance. Now, sometimes 7.5 centimeters is not in 5-inch mobile. It's not a joke. You cannot get that 7.5 centimeters. Now you will reduce the distance. Now, if it is not less than λ/2 distance, means if you have to keep at least this λ/2 distance between the antennas. If you don't keep that, suppose if you place receive antenna or transmit antenna 1 here and receive or transmit antenna 2 here, H1, H2 remains the same. H1, H2 remains the same. Are you all with me? Now, that is what C1, this case study 1 says. If you don't separate λ/2 distance for the antennas, it comes under the property called correlation. That is correlation of the antennas at the transmitter, correlation of the antennas at the receiver, and channel will be correlated. Channel correlation due to noise and fading and due to improper placement of the transmit and receive antennas. Any questions as of now?
Sir, we would like to avoid that, right? We would like to make
exactly. You have to avoid that. But in most of the handheld devices, it is not possible, isn't it so? That's why most of the 4G concepts, most of the phones won't go for 2x2 MIMO. I'll come back to that. Your question is correct. Here you have to avoid that 2x2 MIMO kind of setups. Only some mobiles like OnePlus and they have gone on for 2x2 with a variation in millimeter wave frequencies or in sub-gigahertz frequencies. I'll come back to that. Are you clear with this concept? If you don't maintain a minimum distance of λ/2, you will have channel correlation or the transmit receive antenna correlation. What is the difficulty in that? What is the difficulty if you maintain that? Oh, okay, correlation happens. What happens then? Now, let me go back to the QPSK constellation point. This is what? +1. This is what? -1. This is what? +j. This is what? -j. Now let's say I have transmit antenna 1, I have transmit antenna 2. Let's assume +1 has been transmitted here and -1 has been transmitted here. Let's assume for the sake of simplicity here. Now H1 you have, H2 you have. Now if you have a proper λ/2 separation, you will have something like 0.68 plus j 0.0 or j0. You have somewhere around 0.4 or 0.3 or some 0.32. Okay, minus 0.32, okay, plus j0, something like that you will get, because -1 has been radiated. Now your receiver, suppose if you have only one receiver, your receiver will identify what is this 0.68 and this 0.68 will be compared. Now just observe here, just observe carefully here. This is my 0th point. I think this is visible. My red dot is visible. This is my origin. Now, because +1 has been transmitted, because of the noise which is induced, the constellation point has been shifted from +1 to 0.68, something like that. Okay. Now, this 0.68 is relatively very close to +1. It is not very close to +j or -j or -1, isn't it so? Now, this 0.68 can be easily identified by brute force or by Euclidean distance, minimum Euclidean distance decoding. Very simple. 0.68 means obviously you'll go to this point. Now, -0.32 means, oh, you have a lot of noise over here and this point is very near to this point, not near to this or to this. Does that make any sense? Now, you have produced λ/2. It doesn't mimic the behavior. Now, let us consider another case here. Yeah, any questions? Please go ahead if you have any. Okay, fine. Now, case 1. Now I don't have space to produce this λ/2. What is happening here? H1 will be somewhere like 0.5. Let's assume it as 0.5 and this assume 0.5. What happens if you add these two? Destructive interference. Now you have not done anything. There is nothing wrong from the antenna side. But the problem is antenna correlation has been not taken care of. Because of antenna correlation, channel gets correlated and H1, H2, H1 becomes equal to H2. Now what happens? 0.5 plus J0 minus 0.5 plus J0 will give you 0. Means these 2 points will come here. These 2 constellation points will come to origin. You will not be in a position to identify what point is radiated from which antenna straight away. Have you understood the difficulty behind this? I hope so. Now, what is happening here? What are you trying to prove from explaining all these things? The concept is with one transmit antenna and one receive antenna, Nothing is possible. If this channel goes for a deep fade, if this goes for a toss, then that's all. You don't get anything. And if you have more than one transmit antenna or one receive antenna, at least you will be in a position to receive the signal. Now what happens at the receiver? Over fading channels, the performance will degrade. Though the deep fade is not very frequent, but the resultant signal strength, what you are going to have here, that is your signal to noise ratio, okay, that deteriorates. Have you understood the concept here? Have you understood the channel correlation difficulty? This is very, very important. I'll not ask nonsense questions. I'll ask only these kinds of case studies. What is the essence of this? What happens? What happens to the deterioration? How the error performance? We will try to derive all those things in the coming classes. Okay. Now, any questions? I'll give you 3 to 4 minutes time. You can ask any questions as of now. If you have understood anything over here. Okay, I'll go back to any slide you want and you can ask any question. The stage is for you to ask questions. 3 minutes questionnaire. Next we'll start again.
Sir, so the point of diversity is to use multiple antennas and somehow combine them to get a reliable signal.
Perfect. Perfect.
But
that is the next step.
Like does there have to be multiple receivers also for multiple antennas, or?
That depends on what kind of architecture that you are going to choose. That depends on what kind of efficiency your system can perform. What is the there is a proper term called spectral efficiency. Okay, how much bandwidth is allocated to your system, at the same time how much strength that you can maintain from your transmit antenna, and what is the spectral efficiency that you can bring it from your system, so that it depends on what kind of transmitter and receiver architecture you want based on the spectral efficiency. Yes. Okay, fine. Now what happens here? Any more questions? Okay. Now, first class itself, you will not understand everything, but get on with the idea. If you have any doubts on the concepts itself, you stop me. Okay. Okay, fine. Now here. Now mimic. How does it mimic? We have seen that. How does it mimic, and what is the channel correlation? What happens here? We have understood that. Now what is the next point? Destructive interference, constructive interference. That's the concept we have seen. Now we'll get on with the idea. Any more questions? If you have, just try to ask. Just try to stop me at any time and you can ask. Now I have told something like SNR, signal to noise ratio. You can define SNR because you have studied digital communication. You know what is SNR. Now there is one more term which comes on the x-axis. There is one more term which comes on the y-axis which defines your wireless communication system. SNR in dB, that is on the x-axis, and not A, that is, let me write it as BER only, then I'll tell you what is that ABER. Okay, BER. For a typical BPSK system, I think professor has proved what is the theoretical upper bound, 1 by 2 gamma, 1 by 4 gamma, something like that he might have proved in his class. What is the theoretical limit for BPSK? What is the bit error rate versus SNR for QPSK? What is the bit error rate for QAM systems? Isn't it so? Now, there is something like this. This is in 10 power 0, 10 power minus 1, 10 power minus 2, 10 power minus 3, 10 power minus 4, and minimum is 10 power minus 5, and this is origin 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, let's say. What is on the x-axis? That is SNR, signal to noise ratio. What is on the y-axis is bit error ratio. Generally it is also called as average bit error rate or average bit error ratio. Now, what do you want to prove from this? Two things I can prove from this. Let me go back to the case. Oh, what happened? Cool. I can prove two things from this graph. Now, if I transmit something like 1000 bits, okay, 1000 bits. Let's say one bit is in error. One bit is in error for a specified power or for specified signal to noise ratio. SNR is 10 dB. Now you will go somewhere here. SNR of 10 dB. What is the error? Now 10 to the power of 3. 1 in 1000. Now this is my SNR. Now similarly, if you transmit 10,000 bits, if one bit is in error, we'll go somewhere here for the same SNR. That SNR will be 10 to the power of -4, so on and so forth. Now, if you recollect properly, your digital modulation schemes, and if you understand properly the BPSK, if you plot BER versus SNR for a single input, single output system, means only one transmit antenna, one receive antenna. If you transmit and if you receive for H1 is not equal to H2 or only one H1, this is in AWGN channel. I have not talked about anything about Rayleigh, Rishon, something like that. For a simple AWGN channel, considering only one H and there are no interceptors or interferences and a proper AWGN noiseless, this AWGN channel, okay, the worst possible case of a AWGN channel at a bit error rate of 10 to the power of -5, you will have something like this waterfall curve, means 9.8 dB SNR is required. Just follow my words. 9.8 dB SNR is required for a BPSK, single input, single output system, in order to obtain a ABR of 10 to the power of -5. Are you all with me? Now, in order to achieve the bit error rate of 10 to the power of -5, you need a SNR of 9.8 dB. Okay, that is for AWGN channel. That's for an AWGN channel. The same with QPSK. QPSK also gives somewhere around 9.82 dB. Same performance. QPSK will also give you the same performance. But what happens in case of QPSK? You have +1, -1, +J, -J. How many bits you have here? 4 bits you have. If you go for 8 QAM, 8 QAM generally it is not used. 8 PSK will be used and 16 QAM will be used. How many bits you can transmit? 4 bits you can transmit. And what you have here? You have this performance. Means in order to obtain the ABER of 10 to the power of -5, you need larger SNRs for 8 QAM and 16 QAM. Are you with me? You have to understand this concept properly. Then only next discussions will be helpful and fruitful. Any questions, any doubts? Just please do let me know if you have any queries here. Just try to understand this concept properly. In order to achieve an effective average BER of 10 to the power of -5 for a BPSK and a QPSK system, which is operating with single input, single output transmit antenna combinations over a AWGN channel, you need 9.8 dB of SNR. Okay, fine. Now, what if this goes for a deep fade? If this goes for a deep fade, what happens? Let me take another color. You require more power somewhere here. Similarly, if this is too bad, let's assume this is 50% fade. Now let's also assume 100% fade. 100% fade means you will get a line like this. This is called as error floor. Error floor means whatever signal strength you want to improve, you improve the power. Because of the complete fade, 100% fade, you don't get anything. This is the significance of this graph. Means you will have an error floor at 10 to the power of 0 or 10 to the means whatever number of bits that you have radiated, nothing has been transmitted properly. Means for every raise in SNR, every 5 dB or 10 dB raise in SNR, nothing is improving on the green line. Now, in those cases, this is completely devastated. You cannot simply change that system into a good system. That is a useless system. You can't do anything with that. No deterioration. That is a system which cannot be corrected or which cannot be rectified at all. I hope this point is clear as of now. Now, what are you trying to achieve from explaining all these things? Now, if you look at this graph properly, now this is for a single input, single output system. Okay, let me go to the next slide. Now I have a system something like this. One transmit antenna and two receive antennas. This system is called as a MISO system. SIMO system. This system is called as a SIMO system. Single input, multi-out. Single input, multi-output. Now two receivers you have and one transmitter you have. Even if this goes for a toss, still you could recover the signal from the second antenna. Means you have a secondary path which is available. Now what happens to the state of the system? Now let's say this is at 10 dB, this is BER, this is BER, this is SNR. For a single input, single output system, you were getting a 10 to the power of minus 5 BER at say SNR of 9.8 dB. Now if you just improve, if you add one more receiver here, two cases. First case, uncorrelated channel conditions. Uncorrelated means transmitter is not correlated, receiver is also not, because there is only one transmitter, no worries. Receiver is also λ/2 separation has been maintained, let's say. Receiver is also uncorrelated. Then what happens to the channel? Channel becomes uncorrelated. Now let's assume there is no fading, like AWGN. There is no fading, multipath, something like that. There is no fading has been observed. Now this will come down to 5 dB. You are saving this much 5 dB of power just by introducing. There is a mathematical calculation. In the next class, I'll show you how you can do that based on the cumulative distribution function, and the derivative of the cumulative distribution function is your density function. Based on that, you can show, you can write that. You can as well, you can appreciate that fact. This is how, without doing any hardware design implementation, by using just mathematical calculations itself, you will come to know whether this system will work or not. That is the beauty of your analytical approach. Now, by adding one more receiving antenna, approximately 3 to 4 dB of transmit power, minimum transmit power would be sufficient in order to achieve this BER of 10 to the power of minus 5. Why? Because we have assumed the condition in such a way that these two antennas are not correlated. These two antennas have got no correlation, and by utilizing one more receiver antenna, SNR reduced to say something like 3 to 4 dB, because that would be sufficient in order to achieve a bit error rate. Because even here, if you go for something like one antenna, single input, single output antenna with AWGN, the performance is approximately good. 9.8 is good. Now, if this goes for a deep fading analysis, then there is no output here. You require somewhere around an error floor you will get. Now, what happens if they are correlated in the second case? In the second case, what happens if they are correlated? Now, this we cannot do anything. This can go for correlation. This can go for correlation. These two can go for correlation. What happens? You will lose approximately λ/2 separation. Now consider realistic scenario. Your mobile device, most of the mobile devices are not equipped with 2x2 or 1x2 or something like that. How many antennas you have in your mobile device? Anyone? Can you guess? There are 7 transmit receive antennas. Both will act as a transmit. These are transceivers. 7 antennas. Dedicated GPS antenna you have, dedicated Bluetooth, you have FM, you have one antenna which is for the frequency that you can transmit and receive. The other antenna, if there is a 2x2, the same antenna will work with uncorrelation or correlation based on that. Now the problem is, Wi-Fi antenna is also there. in a small handheld device, Wi-Fi antenna is there, FM, you have one more antenna. All these antennas, let's say 7 antennas, are working with different frequencies. GPS works at a different frequency, Wi-Fi works at a different frequency, Bluetooth works at a different frequency, and let's say another antenna which is used for not doing anything, okay, let's say all these antennas are working in different frequencies. But whereas for our analysis, these antennas should work in the same frequency. If you fix the frequency 2.1 gigahertz for 4G, let's say these two antennas, this antenna and this antenna, okay, if they are not lambda by 2 apart because of the same frequency, the distance makes this correlated. When once this receiver and channel gets correlated, these two will act the same. The performance will deteriorate. How exactly it will deteriorate, based on what characteristics it will deteriorate, we will calculate. This is the crux of diversity. You have to maintain 3 things. You have to avoid transmit correlation. You have to avoid receiver correlation. You have to avoid channel correlation. Channel correlation is not in your hand, so that hope for the best, that's all. If you avoid transmit and receiver correlation, 99% of the times you will have lesser chance of channel correlation. This is the first part of diversity. Now, some vague study we have done, some vague study, some concepts, some ideas we have understood, but some vague study we have done. Now, what is exactly this diversity? Where exactly this is used? What are the different kinds of diversity we will have to understand? Okay. Now for that, you need to understand 4 concepts, that is SISO, that is single input, single output system, SIMO, single input, multi output system, MISO, multi input, single output system, MIMO, multi input, multi output system, multiple input, multiple output system. Now, this single input, single output, you know, one transmit antenna, one receive antenna, one transmit, one receive. One transmit, more than one receive. More than one receive, may not be 2, not only 2, 3, 4, 5, anything. But there is a complexity. You cannot simply, your mobile device is your receiver, right? You cannot simply say something like 8 antennas I will install and I will reduce the, no, you can't do that. You can say mathematically, if you implement 8 antennas, you will get very less SNR. Let's say 2 dB itself you will get, even in case of relay or Raytion environment. But can you really install 8 antennas with the lambda by 2 separation distance in your handheld device? No, it's not possible, because all are working in the same frequency, 2 gigahertz, and you cannot maintain that lambda by 2 distance for all these 8 antennas. So this is an improbable situation. It's not possible. Now there is another possibility of implementing all these things. Qualcomm chips are available. I'll discuss that afterwards, after completing the diversity, not now. Now, humanly, it is not possible as of now. It is not possible. In all our devices comes with only 2x2 with a minimal distance of separation. Okay. Now MISO is 2-1. More than 2 transmit antennas and 1 receive antenna. I'll tell you what are all the different advantages. Minimum 2x2 is MIMO. 2x2 is MIMO. General architecture is NR cross NT. You can write NT cross NR also, not a problem. Not a problem. But while writing H, you have to make sure that you have to write in terms of NT cross NR and then write what are all the combinations here. Okay. General standard procedure is NR cross NT. Now let's get into the core diversity part. There are 2 different varieties of diversity. One is macroscopic diversity, macroscopic diversity, and microscopic diversity. Macroscopic and microscopic. Macroscopic diversity. Where are we getting this macroscopic diversity? Let me draw a simple diagram. Okay, just to understand this. This is my base station. Assume this is base station S1. That is site 1 I will write. Site A I will write. Okay. Next similar base station I will write with a different. Okay. This is site B. Okay. Now I have some correlatedness or some fading or some hill stations or something like that here, and this will pass information till this point, this will pass information till this point, and let me change the color, and this will pass information till this point. This may pass information to this point also. If my mobile is situated somewhere here, let's consider this as a hill. Okay, it's not a hill. Consider this as a hill. Okay, my mobile is stuck somewhere here in this region. What kind of a region is this? You've studied this. You have to imagine what kind of a situation is this. Shadowed region. Okay. Now here you have site A plus site B. Both you have A and B. Site A and site B. Power is absolutely good. If you are sending same piece of information from site A and site B, if your mobile is somewhere located here, you don't have to worry about anything, obviously, because LOS is there, NLOS is there, and site A is transmitting the same piece of information. Site B is also transmitting the same piece of information. In your combiner stage, you can look at the higher SNR and take one signal, which is absolutely fantastic. Now, suppose if I'm standing here, nothing is visible here. Here, that's all. Nothing is visible here. If my mobile goes for this area, or if it stuck somewhere here, gone. Hilly terrain or something like that, gone. Nothing is visible. This kind of architecture comes with macroscopic diversity. Means there is an abundant shadow region, and this shadowing effect cannot be controlled by your physical layer channel derivation or design itself. This has to go with your network layer protocols. All these wireless communication, whatever we have studied so far, in our textbook, this is a physical layer perspective, not any other layer. Physical layer perspective. That is what we have exhibited. If physical layer works, the above layer will work. And if the physical layer itself fails, means there is no point in designing the upper layer. Gone. That system is useless. Now, what does it mean? In macroscopic diversity, what happens is that's a 2-branch macroscopic diversity. The mobile user can connect to site A and or B depending on its position. Now here, site A and site B, depending on the position of the mobile, it can connect within the available service area. Now the signal strength varies of the signal at the different sites. Site A has different signal, site B has different signal. The worst situation is the shadowed region, the area where the signal, or you can call it as the collective signal strength level from two sites, site A and site B, is possibly the weakest. It's absolutely weak. Now this has a significant effect on the link quality or the transmission link in the reception. So you cannot do anything much more than this. This kind of attribute comes with macroscopic diversity. Now you can't do anything. You should position a relay or a spot or access point somewhere here to reach this point, to this point, and to this point somewhere here. As I told you earlier, the relay, what I'm talking is only based on the physical layer perspective. Okay, the relay node will retransmit information. Okay, there are other ways of doing. Nowadays there are other ways, like most of the professors have worked on the concepts called as relaying technology for wireless communication, so on and so forth. Like most of, I think one of your friend is working on the same concept, exploiting the behavior in a shadowed region. How do you place the 5G cell? One of your friends working on that project as well. So now, this is what is going to happen in the shadowed region. Even if you increase the number of transmit antenna, doesn't make any sense. Okay, because my mobile is a receiver device as well as a transmitting device. That is another funniest part. Now, this is macroscopic diversity. This kind of study comes with the nature of what kind of terrain you are looking at and what kind of topology you want to implement there. Nobody in the terrain will ask for 5G communication and all. They just want connectivity. That's all. So routing and other type of cable laying and some kind of wireless environments through high altitude platforms or through the Google balloons or something like that. No? You can maintain that. Okay, you can transmit information in order to cover that region. That is one way of addressing that situation. Now we are not going to study all those things because that itself is a project. Okay. Now we will be studying the small scale effects of what is going to happen in case of diversity methods that counteract the effect of small scale fading. Okay, diversity methods, the microscopic effects or the microscopic diversity technique, small scale fading due to multi-path propagation, and it affect how does it affect the receiver, how does it affect the transmitter, whether the transmitter has a information from the feedback link from the receiver, so on and so forth. Let me not waste time. I'll give you a brief introduction to all these things and we'll stop. Okay. Now we will be studying about microscopic diversity. Microscopic diversity technique. Microscopic diversity. First one is your antenna array diversity, or you can start from frequency and time itself. Frequency and not R. Okay, frequency. Let me write it properly here. Okay, frequency and time diversity. Both are different. Frequency diversity and time diversity. This is also called as temporal diversity. Now you have understood the correlatedness and uncorrelatedness, everything. In order to define this frequency diversity, first you have to consider to create that uncorrelated branches, time signals on 2 or more different frequency carriers that you are going to transmit. You have studied FDMA, CDMA definitions, you know, right? So similarly, you have to imagine the same situation here. In order to obtain the uncorrelated branches, branches means more than one receiver or more than one transmitter, that you have to understand. Okay. Now to create uncorrelated branches, transmitter signals or 2 or more on 2 or more different frequency carriers you have to transmit. So what is the criteria that you have to meet? How do you simply transmit based on the branches? What is the criteria? Now by separating the carrier frequency, now if you have something like this, let's say you have something like this. I will give you a typical mobile station scenario. How exactly? Now, let's say our GSM I will take, okay, 895 megahertz. And let's say this is 920 megahertz. Now, let's say one of our student is calling. Let's say he's having one mobile. Let's consider this as a transmitter. Let's consider this as a receiver. Let me tell you something like this. Okay, somebody is trying to call. This is A, this is B. Okay, so A is trying to call B. Okay, this is what is going to happen. Okay, now what does it mean? It means it has to be a frequency that has to be uncorrelated. Okay, now first call comes to this channel which has to be allocated. Let's say 895.5 megahertz. First call is allocated this channel. He will reach this. When the next channel comes, when some subscriber, if he wants to make a call, the farthest channel will be allocated. It makes some sense because of the discussion what we had. Some other, let him stand nearby this person, that doesn't make any difference, but the channel which is allocated. Similarly, in the frequency domain, what happens? By separating the carrier frequencies, uncorrelatedness can be maintained. What is that? This is F1, and suppose if you wanted to send F2, these should be orthogonal to each other, isn't it? Now, larger the separation gives the lower correlation, isn't it so? Yeah. Any doubts? You have studied the coherence bandwidth of the channel. Larger the separation, lower the correlation. Very simple. So by separating the carrier frequencies, uncorrelatedness can be achieved across all the branches. Okay. What is the advantage? System requires only one single antenna, both a transmitter and receiver. That's all. This will help even if the mobile is not moving, isn't it so? Even if this is stationary, this will help because F1 and F2 are orthogonal to each other, and larger the separation, lower the correlation. Now you can ask one more doubt here. Suppose if all these channels are occupied, what happens? Then you can't do anything. If the bandwidth itself is, limited, and if there are something like 100,000 callers, nothing can be done. You will have interference. Now tell me, what is the disadvantage of this technique? The disadvantage of this technique is, as and when you increase the branches, means number of branches, Number of branches means you have to understand it in terms of transmitter receiver combinations. As and when branches increase, bandwidth required will increase linearly. If you have not sufficient bandwidth accompanied, then this diversity scheme is absolutely useless. Bandwidth is limited, so frequency diversity is less attractive. Similarly, if you put it in terms of T1, T2, T3, T4 different time slots, it becomes time diversity. It becomes time diversity. This is self-explanatory. That's all. In terms of frequency you're talking, in terms of time you're talking. That's all. If the channels are more, power has to be splitted across the channel, then M branches, whatever you have, M slots you have, so many number of slots here. If you have one slot, let me tell you, that is one more important aspect to it. If you have one transmit antenna and one receive antenna, what is the, let's say 0011, 11 has to be transmitted, 00. Go to the QPSK, go to the QPSK or BPSK also it does, 00, 01, 10, 11. Okay, this is +1, this is -1, this is +J, this is -J. Okay, 00, 11. What are these two symbols? This is 1 - J, that has to be radiated. I think all of you are aware of this. If not, just look at it. 1 - J has to be transmitted. Now, if you have only one time slot, T1 will transmit 1, T2 will transmit -J. That logically means 00 has been transmitted at time 1, 11 has been transmitted at time 2. Does that make any sense? So now if you increase, similar to your frequency diversity, if you increase number of branches, if you simply increase number of branches to say M, rate will drop. Rate becomes 1 by M. Isn't it so? Similarly, in time, if you want to explain this, the power is divided, then it becomes 1 by 2. If you have 3 antennas, it becomes 1 by 3. If you have 4 antennas, 1 by 4. So equal distribution of power will happen. So time diversity, frequency diversity becomes useless if you have more number of branches. Okay, fine. I hope you have understood this. There's no big deal in understanding all these things. You have to concentrate, that's all. Now there comes the second kind of diversity technique after frequency and time diversity called the space diversity. It is also called as antenna array diversity. Antenna array diversity. Antenna array diversity. Antenna array diversity. What does it mean? It means several antenna elements are separated in space. Several antenna elements are separated in space. I'm not talking about any correlatedness or uncorrelatedness. Several antennas have been utilized, even at the transmitter, even at the receiver. Okay. Now, what does it mean? You need a diversity combiner here in order to combine the signal at this point, signal at this point, signal at this point, then combine, get the maximum of this or the best possible signal out of it and transmit. Provided if all these 3 transmit antennas are sending the same piece of information. Remember this. Now, if they are transmitting different information, let's say 00 is transmitted from this antenna and 10 is transmitted from this antenna and 01 has been transmitted from this antenna. All 3 are different and they are uncorrelated, not correlated. Now here, what happens here is this is creating transmit diversity because at the same time, how many bits of information you are transmitting? 2, 2, 2. 6 bits of information you are transmitting. But the thing is, if this goes for a toss, you may have this here. You may have this here. You may have this here. If this goes for a toss here, there is a high probability that you will lose 00. Okay. And don't worry about that. That transmit diversity scheme is also very important in varieties of ways, in varieties of multiplexing techniques, utilizes the transmit diversity idea. I'll tell you how to design all those things also. Now here S1, S2, S3 receiver antenna, usually R1, R2, R3, combine it. Here you will have a maximum SNR, that is gamma C or gamma sigma, whatever it is. And you will have a detector over here. that is maximum likelihood or maximum a posteriori decoder, ML decoder. ML is not machine learning, okay? ML, maximum likelihood decoding, okay? Here you will get the estimated. Now, if this is X transmitted, X cap is the estimated, and detected symbol, how far it is equivalent to, how approximately it is equivalent to this. Because it has some noise content also, this is the estimated symbol X cap, and how far it is closer to your transmitted symbol, you have to identify. That's all. Now here what happens is, if you have only one transmit antenna, in case of antenna array diversity, if you have one transmit antenna and you have number of receive antennas, and if you have a combiner here, this becomes receiver diversity antenna array or space diversity, because you have to combine all these things and spatially they are separated receive antennas. You can have the same thing at the transmitter end itself, transmit diversity, transmit space diversity, you can have that. Okay, the logic remain the same. Logic remain the same, but the thing is how well you are designing the system that matters. Example is where exactly it can be used. These can be used for uplink transmission or access point transmission. But the problem with this kind of system is receiver computational complexity become high because more number of receiver antennas which are active. Okay, when this is high, why it is high? Because in single input, single output system, you have only one transmit, one receive. In single input, multi output system, what happens is you need 3 RF chains. You need 3 RF chains at the receiver, all are active, and then you have to transmit a piece of information and receive the information. So complexity of this kind of system is really high. But at base stations, because base station can be both transmission and reception can happen like our mobile device. At base station for uplink transmission, this can be used. This kind of architecture can be used. This is about space or antenna diversity. Okay. Then next comes, I think, angular diversity. Angular diversity. Angular diversity. Angular diversity is another concept where multiple antennas, you can have uncorrelatedness or correlatedness with different antenna patterns. You have one antenna pattern like, I'll write something like this. Okay. Okay, here if you have something like one antenna, and if you have some pattern 1 of antenna 1. Similarly, if you have another antenna which is separated, may be separated, may not be separated. Okay. Okay, and if it has some kind of another response, this is pattern 1 and pattern 2, this is antenna 2, this comes under multiple antennas with or without. Both this may act as a transmitter as well as a receiver. Here this one also transmitter as well as a receiver. So what is happening here in angular diversity? Multiple antennas with or without spatial separation with different antenna patterns are used. This is angular separation, angle difference. That's all. Similarly, after this you have one more called polarization. Yeah, polarization diversity. Polarization diversity. Polarization diversity concept is very simple. Don't go for your mobile scenario because that is circularly polarized. In case of polarization diversity, multiple antennas with different polarization. Here, let's say this is antenna in your lab scene, E and H polarization. Similarly here, horizontal and vertical polarization. Horizontal and vertical polarization. So different angle, different polarization, that will give you polarization diversity. Obviously, even if you are transmitting same piece of information from this horizontal part, let's say this is horizontal and this is vertical. Okay, you don't write, you have to write while writing the exam, you have to write a different figure for that. Now, if this is horizontal, this will be parallel to this axis. If this is perpendicular to the x-axis, that's all. vertical, horizontal, separated by 90 degree, orthogonal to each other. That's all. Now, this is the basic study what we have done so far. Very fundamental, very fundamental. But the concepts, whatever I have discussed, if you have any clarifications, clear it now itself. Clear it now itself, because in the next class we will be going for combining, and everything will come into picture. Cumulative distribution function, PDF will come, and then probability mass function will come, and then you have to derive and show why exactly combining makes some sense, and why adding more than one or two receive antennas will drastically improve the performance. So these are all the theoretical concepts behind understanding the math part of it. Don't be under any impression that this becomes a theory class. No way. From next class onwards, bring your calculator. We have to solve some case studies. I'll give you some SNR, and I'll ask you to find out what is happening with the receiver, how receiver can improve the performance. The core idea being is SNR versus BER. SNR versus BER. That's all. What is the error rate? Bit error rate. How to achieve 10 to the power of minus 5 at least, because video transmission happens at a bit error rate of 10 to the power of minus 5 only, not less than that. Audio happens at 10 to the power of minus 4. Okay, but our mobile communication, since it uses GMSK technology, it will go up to 10 to the power of minus 3 also sometimes. That's why sometimes the audibility range will go here and there. But 10 to the power minus 5, minimum 10 to the power of minus 5 would be required. And what is the maximum SNR that is required for a AWGN channel? I have not talked anything about relay race and something like that. In the next classes, we will be discussing all these AWGN condition with BPSK, QPSK, DPSK. DPSK is prominent, very important, and how to go about it. And then in the next class, we will be starting off with combining techniques, the different linear combining techniques, and receiver diversity plays a major role. How exactly these things will come into picture. And angular, if you're considering angle diversity, a multipath fading radio signal, how exactly scattering happens, what is that wide sense stationary stochastic process with uncorrelated scattering comes into picture. A directional antenna, how angle polarization, angular diversity, how exactly it improves. Similarly, if you change the order or the polarization, horizontal, what is the performance? What is the performance of a vertical? But in case of a mobile radio scenario, what happens if it is circularly polarized? How performance can be improved? And if you go for improving the number of transmit or receive antennas, how exactly you can increase the performance, and how you can reduce the power. If you can't reduce the power, how you can manage it. Those things we have to study and discuss. I think I'll stop at this stage. If you have any queries, feel free to ask. I think
sir, I have one.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Sir, like at the receiver diversity, we are saying that messages appearing on the multiple antennas, but if the signal is going through different channels, then it would suffer from different amount of delays, right?
Exactly.
So,
correct.
So sir, my question is, like, at a given point of time, there are different messages at different antenna.
Different messages means you are transmitting two different information from two different antennas. Okay. Transmit diversity.
Sir, what I am trying to say is, for example, I am sending message A and message B consecutively.
That is what. A and B consecutively, if you are transmitting from two different antennas, okay, from two different antennas, right?
Yes, sir. Same information from two different antennas, but consecutively.
How can A and B same?
So, like message A, I transmitted from both antennas. Now I'm sending message B from both.
Okay. Means you are using two different time slots.
Yes, sir. So
right.
my question is, like, because of the delay in the channel itself, at the receiver side, I can have different messages on different antennas.
Different messages means A minus B can happen, A plus B can happen, nothing more than that.
A minus B can happen.
What do you mean by a different message? A, you have transmitted at time T1. Okay. You have transmitted A from both the antennas. A will be received at time T1. Fine. B will be transmitted at time slot 2. Correct. Now B will be received at the receiving antennas. Now if there is a substantial amount of delay at the antenna level, let's say because of the channel impairments. Now what is possible is A might reach after B. Okay, A might reach after B. That is possible, very much possible, because of the reflection, because of the refraction, something. Now the job of the combiner is you have to go for automatic repeat request, or you have to understand the behavior of the channel in such a way that is why that CDF is required for that. Now, if there is a delay, definitely it will compare the delay SNR or the combiner what you have at the receiver will compare what is received at the receive antenna 1, what is received at the receive antenna 2. Now, because of the delay, if B reaches fast than A because of the delay or whatever multipath, now there is a lacuna at time slot 1, either at the transmitter antenna or at the receive antenna, isn't it so? Now what happens is then you have to go for the repeat request, or the symbol at time t1 is said to be lost. Let me write and show you. I think my screen is visible, and I think my screen, yeah. Now, as you have mentioned over here, now A and B, let's say 2 transmit antennas you have at time slot A you have transmitted. It has been radiated. Let's assume you have 2 receive antennas. A you will receive. Let's say this is completely faded. Still this A will be there, but the signal strength of A is very less. It will take whatever A you have transmitted. That's why you have to talk in terms of Euclidean distance. Now let's say A and this is B. Okay, this is B. Now there is a threshold. There is a threshold which is set. Even because of the noise, if this signal cannot go here. Now that is why you have to talk in terms of signal constellation, +1, -1. Okay, now AA has been transmitted. Because of the extent of noise, this will not cross this threshold. Anytime this point may be shifted here, but still this is near to this point, not to this or not to this point. Okay, now I'll ask you to reframe your question once again. A has been received at this point. A at time slot T1 has been received here, but not as good as this. But it will take this because it is going to combine. Now similarly, at time slot T2, B has been transmitted. Good, correct. Now the same. Let's assume the same thing. B has been radiated properly here. B cannot be radiated properly, but this B is there, no, here. But the signal level, the signal strength, this B will be somewhere here because of the multipath or the reflected path. Now, I'll come back to you. Please reframe your question.
Yes, sir. I was trying to say, like, in that same time slot T1, both A and B appears.
That is not possible. No?
Yeah.
That is not possible. That is not possible. If you want to make that happen, A and B, there has to be substantial buffering will be there at the receiver. A and B cannot appear at the same time. If A and B appears at the same time, you have not designed your system properly. Okay, if A and B reaches the receiver, go ahead.
But sir, because of the channel, there is a substantial amount.
Very good, very good. Because of the channel impairments, if A and B receives at the same time, then A will be compared with the previous highest signal at next nearest receiver. If you have only one, that's all, gone case. You don't detect properly. There will be a threshold error. There will be a threshold error in that. Now, if you have more than one antenna which is active at the receiver side, it will compare what is the maximum possible signal. Usually, in the second time slot, what happens is 99% of the times in the second time slot, the signal will be very less compared to the time slot 1 because A has been already radiated. It will undergo error. Now the case 2 is B may not experience that error, but within no time, because of the coherence bandwidth and coherence time, the channel will not get perturbed within 50 nanoseconds, even in indoor scenario. So there is a very less possibility that A and B will reach the receiver at the same time, and if it happens, A will be compared with the before SNR of the next nearest receiver, and then it will be combined. If A is received with the line of sight possible component or the maximum line of sight possible SNR with the previous receiver, and that will be taken care of. B will be rejected. B will be rejected. In the next time slot only, B will be taken into consideration. Now, there are sufficient buffering and all those things will happen. Within one time slot, you will send something like 10 Mbps, 20 Mbps, 100 Mbps. There will be error. Definitely there will be error. But that error cannot be because of delay in transmission. No, that is not because of that. That is just because it has not been decoded properly. A and B will not sit in the same point at the same time. No, it is not going to happen like that. If it happens like that, then your buffering at the receiver is not proper. Time slot 1 means 2 symbols will go, only 2 symbols will go. Time slot 2, 2 symbols will go means 2 symbols only will be transmitted, because these symbols you cannot simply transmit as you wish. A and B are orthogonal to each other. So even if you were to receive, it is very easy for the combiner and the detector to know what is the direction or what is the orientation of A, what is the orientation of B. It's not so difficult. But yours is a valid question. Yes, I do agree with you. But the thing is, there are very many combining techniques wherein you can understand the significance of what is A and what is B. Okay, because you are talking in terms of English alphabet A and B, there exists confusion. But if you talk in terms of Euclidean distance, A is another constellation point, that's all, +1 or -1 or 1 + j or 1 - j, something like that. Now, because of 1 + j and 1 - j, the Euclidean distance will be compared with it's a brute force, maximum likelihood, which is minimum, which is the radiated minimum point that will be taken care of. Though there are errors in that, but that is the optimal solution that you are going to get. Anyway, we will discuss that maximum likelihood. Then you will get a clear picture over how A and B are radiated. But as of now, yes, it is quite natural to get that out. No harm done. Yeah. Anything?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, cool. Anything other than that?
Sir, I had a conceptual doubt. So, in terms of basically what you are saying here is that if we keep antennas at a given spacing, we make an array of them, our performance will increase. Because
performance, okay.
In terms of bit error rate, SNR, whatever metric we take. How is this different from beamforming?
Yeah. Very good. Beamforming is nothing but the orientation of antenna itself, the polarization. Now, I'll stop recording and I'll answer, because this geo and all, if I take that won't be good. Okay. Now, generally what happens is sectoring will be done at the base station. Now, beamforming is nothing but orientation of the signal strength of your antenna towards one direction. Let's say the major part of it will be covered for about 5 kilometers. Now, if you orient your beam towards the specified direction, the distance will come down. Now, your question is correct. How different is beamforming? Beamforming is nothing but concentrating the line of sight component with more power. The major lobe characteristics of your antenna will be positioned according to the specified angle. That is your beamforming. Now, the thing with whatever I have diversity techniques, whatever we have discussed, is the performance metric can be improved by maintaining a sufficient distance between the antennas. Now, the sufficient distance does not specifically mean that it has to be polarized or it has to be horizontal or it has to be vertical. A minimum distance has to be maintained in order to avoid that confusion of channel correlation. That's all. But your beamforming is absolutely different, because the orientation with respect to the major lobe characteristics of the degree of transmission happens from the antenna will be positioned throughout the duration. Sir,
what I'm understanding is that if you, let's say you have 5 antennas, and if you want to perform beamforming to improve the performance rather than doing diversity, there is a different spacing and orientation you have to put it. Arrange it in.
Yes.
And diversity will have a different configuration.
Yes, definitely, most definitely.
Understood,
Yes.
sir.
Yes.
And practically speaking, in terms of hardware, since I have been just introduced to this, what sort of chip or IC or whatever does this combining?
Combining, if you want to have it in terms of what frequency you need to understand. Suppose, let's say for 4G, if you want to properly have a linear combining technique, then you may have to go for that NVIDIA, sorry, not NVIDIA, that Intel 8612 series. I don't know, but I can tell you that. I can tell you 860 series, some chip is there which can combine the almost up to about 16 cross 16 it will combine. I think Qualcomm have developed one, Qualcomm have developed that 4 cross 8 and 8 cross 4 antenna configurations for this kind of combining technique. That I think your Snapdragon 732 series will work. Your 732 series of Snapdragon should work.
Yes, sir. I mean for our Zigbee, so that would be 2.4 gigahertz.
Okay. What is the frequency of operation of Zigbee that you are using?
I think it's a 2.4 gigahertz one.
So first Wi-Fi, yeah. First Wi-Fi frequency, if you are using, then it should be somewhere around Zigbee. Then I have to see. I don't know exactly that Zigbee. There are. I think probably Zigbee kind of, but the distance will reduce, no, if you do with Zigbee up to 100 meters, because it follows that 105.4 standard, no, 802.110.
Yes, sir. Actually, practically is a practical experience question, because because we have a lot of interference where we use the system. So even 3 to 4 meters also no reception.
It happens. Yes.
So I was considering beamforming, and now you have introduced diversity. So I was looking for a chip so that I can start looking like how to implement.
I think I have to see if that is the genuine. There are something like 5168 series of Zigbee. I think I've seen, but I'm not quite sure about that. But there are something like high power Zigbee 5168 or 5160 series I have seen. JN 5160 series. I think if I were to remember that correctly, you can look into something like integrated antenna with power Zigbee JN 5160 or 68 series. You can look into it, but I'm not sure. But JN 51 series I have seen. Those are high power modules. You look into it once, but I don't remember properly whether that is dedicated for hybrid kind of diversity or beamforming, something like that. But I have seen those things will work for at least 15 to 20 meters. That's that much assurance I can give you.
Thank you, sir. I'll look into it.
Yeah. Anything other than that? From next class onwards, please bring your calculators, okay? And we will be solving some case studies and realistic case studies, okay? No theory, nothing. What is this, how to derive this, and how do you solve a realistic problem? Okay, so you make sure that you have a calculator with you, and then we will start with the combining techniques, and we will try to understand what is CDF, what is PDF, and how maximal ratio combining, selection combining, EGC, that is equal gain combining, all these combining methodologies can be implemented. And what is the role of this diversity in our wireless communication systems going on further for 5G, that we have to understand. Okay, then thank you so much. And if you have any queries, and please don't message me in that Teams, because I might have been logged out of that. If you have any queries, mail it to me or WhatsApp me, whatever it is. Okay. And before the next class, if you have any questions, do let me know. Fine. Then if you have, if you have no other questions, then I think we can stop at this stage. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, then. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.